Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the Sikh Helpline show with Satnam Singh, myself, Ranjit Benji and Sharon. Today we're going to be doing a show on mental health and well-being, and we've got Ranjit Benji, who's from the Sikh Helpline Sikh Helpline team, and we've got Sharon Benji, who's obviously gone through this massive journey of mental health and well-being, and she's here today to share some of her experiences and obviously let you know there's help out there and people are here to support you. So I'm going to go straight over to yourself, Sharon Benji. If you'd like to introduce yourself and let the viewers know about yourself.
My name's Sharon. I have 2 children. I live in London, and I like to take the opportunity to share my journey, because I really want to help other people that are also suffering and struggling
From mental health.
From mental health
and
issues
well-being,
and well-being, yeah, for sure.
So can I just ask, how did you come about finding the Sikh Helpline?
I follow you on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I watch the posts and all the good work that you've been doing, especially throughout COVID.
Yeah.
I feel really proud of all the work you do. So, and plus everything that when you've been doing your mental health sort of
Resonates
posts,
with yourself as well.
Yeah, and I thought I really want to be involved and I really want to help.
Well, the platform's yours, please. Benji, can you start us through what happened then 10 years ago? Because I believe it was about 10 years ago it happened, or was it a bit longer?
I was in a domestic violence situation from about 2000 to 2012, and you don't really realise what you're getting into, because in the beginning it's all perfect and fine, and then there's little things that happen, and then they sort of make you feel like you're going mad. Like, for instance, he would say things or do things that you think, no, you didn't do that, or you didn't say this.
This is your husband, right?
Yeah, and then it makes you feel like you're going mad a little bit, and then you're thinking, I know I put it there, but it's called gaslighting. They do things to make you think you're going a bit mad, and then over the years, the abuse, it was just little verbal things to start off with, and then it was throwing things or trying to hurt me. But it became more and more once I had my children, and he stopped working, and so a lot of the pressure was on me to be the breadwinner, and everything. It got to the point that everything that I did was wrong. Even brushing my hair, like blow drying my children's hair, was wrong. Washing the dishes was wrong. Even how I put the toilet roll on the stand was wrong. Like, we didn't know what mood he was in. Like, he was getting angry at the littlest things all the time.
So would you say that you growing up, you were fine, you were a normal girl, and as you got married, these things started to happen where it affected your mental well-being, or was there anything prior to that?
I think growing up, there was also pressures. Like you want to be a good wife. You have to you learn how to cook. You have to learn how to clean. You have to be this, very, generous person with your time, your love, your energy for others. Always giving, and that's what I was brought up to do. But in turn, I realised that nobody was caring or asking me about my well-being or my welfare. And I think there was elements of depression when I was growing up, and having to conform and having to be a certain way. There was a lot of pressure in everything you do.
Is that because you're from predominantly, as we all are, we're from an Asian background? Is that because the understanding is different? Is that the pressures there that how was that?
I think my parents come from a generation where women just grew up and expected to just get married, have babies, and serve their husbands and in-laws, which is fine. But I've grown up in a Western society, and I'm educated, and I've been working and had a career, and then to go from that to then, it was a massive life shift, and I was kind of battling against that, and the more I kind of battled against that lifestyle, the more I kind of rebelled, I suppose, and pushed away. And being the eldest, the pressure was for me to get married way before I was ready, because then that stopped my younger siblings from getting married. So there was a lot of pressure on me, and when it's all coming down on you, you think, I'm just going to take whatever option comes along. So I decided to get married to my husband, and with my eyes closed, really, because I was brought up in this bubble. You feel everyone has the same heart and feelings as you do, but not everybody does. So there was the being unhappy at home growing up because of all this conflict between what's going on in my head and heart compared to what will people say, and you have to kind of almost be a double personality. So I was always battling inside with that. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what my identity was, I think.
Could you not speak to anybody?
At the time, I didn't know that there were services available, and I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know who to speak to, because it was just the done thing. It was just the done way. So I thought everybody around me was accepting that this is the situation.
This is the way of life.
This is the way of life. But inside, I wanted to live a different life. I didn't want to be just sitting at home making roti sabji all day long. I wanted to use my head. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to travel. I wanted to do so much more.
So talk to me about when you started feeling unhappy in terms of your well-being, your mental state, your physical state. If you talk us through that journey.
I think it was always bubbling away as a child and growing up. And then when I got married, I thought everything was fine. And then having kids, they gave me a purpose and stuff. But on the other side, I thought in marriage you have to put up with a lot of stuff. And I thought that's just, I've never been in a relationship before. I never, had close contact, with a man before. So you think, well, that's, them keeping a watch on where you're going, who you're with, what you're doing, is them caring. But in the end, when it was so intense, for instance, one day the Central Line, I was coming back from work and the Central Line had shut down. So I had to walk about 5 miles home by myself, from the train station from when it shut off. And because I come home late, he thought I was, out having an affair, drinking, whatever. And I was trying to prove that, look, I haven't been out. I haven't, I've just walked all this way. Had to prove myself to you. So I was constantly anxious. I was always scared if I left work, even 2 minutes late. I was scared, living in fear all the time. And that then in turn rubbed off on my children, because even they were scared. What's Daddy going to say? What's Daddy going to do? Or don't make Daddy upset. Don't make Daddy angry. And then I was becoming more and more sadder, and used to cry all the time. And then the abuse just got worse. I had an accident, unfortunately, and I stopped working. And because I wasn't bringing money in, the abuse got really, really bad. Even with regards to physical harm. I was stuck, I couldn't get food or water. I was pretty much trapped in my bedroom. It was really hard. I was a prisoner in my own home and I couldn't escape. And then it was only through the kindness of strangers and reaching out on social media with groups. The first thing I want to say is I first went to the doctors because I didn't understand what was going on with me, because it's the depression and anxiety and not breathing, and thought I was going to die all the time. I thought I actually had a physical ailment. And then it was the doctor that actually said, no, you're suffering with depression and anxiety. And at the time I thought, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what it was. And even the thought of taking antidepressants, I was like, oh no, I don't want to take them. I'm not crazy. I'm okay. And then she said, no, just try them, just take them.
Who told you to go and seek help though? Was this on your own accord, or did somebody come in? Because you know you were trapped in a room. You've got people who you've been probably cut off from.
Yeah, I was cut off from friends, family, everybody, and my husband made it so toxic for people to even come into the house
Yeah.
that they stopped coming in. So I was trapped, but the only way I could escape was by going to the doctor because I had a medical issue. And then it was her that shared, look, this is where you go, and then she referred me to an Asian counselling advisor called Asiana, based in East London. And at the beginning, I thought my life was normal. I thought domestic abuse or a man treating you that way is normal. I'm like, I'm not a battered wife. It's me. The issue's with me. They break you down so much that you actually genuinely feel that it's your problem, that you're not good enough. You know, and you're not a good wife, you're not a good mother, you're not, you know, they make you feel this small. And I just wanted something to not want to cry all the time.
No,
I just
of
wanted
course.
something not to try and be a good mum, because I was putting on a mask and pretending to the world and to everybody that I'm happy.
So when you were putting on this mask and letting the world know that you're fine, everything's okay, in terms of mental health and well-being, what were you feeling like? What were you going through? What were you thinking?
I was crumbling. I was crushed. I thought life isn't worth living. I used to dream about wanting to die. I wanted to die all the time, and the only reason why I didn't is because of my children. And I couldn't go. I couldn't leave them with him, and I couldn't see a way out because I thought, I'm trapped. This is my life now. What am I going to do? The only way I can go is by ending my life. And the biggest turning point for me was I think I was watching a program or there was something in the news where somebody had killed their children. And before all my life, I love my children with all my heart, and I'm like, who would do that to their children? Who would do that? And then it was a date in November, and it clicked, and I said, now I understand why people would rather take their children's lives with them than leave them behind with that person. And when that thought came to me, I felt so sick in myself. I can't believe I had that thought. And then that's when
when you went to the GP?
I went to the GP for my depression first. Okay. So I was taking antidepressants, and then I was speaking to Asiana, and they were giving me coping mechanisms with trying to educate me on domestic violence and what's going on. But at the time, when you're in this dark hole, when people say, oh, just do this or just do that or you'll be fine, and it's not easy because you're still going home, you're still living in it, and it's like trying to think of 5 things you're grateful for, and even at that time you lose your faith in God, you lose your faith in anything and everybody because you think, I'm a good person, why me? Baba ji kithe hai, you know, and so your thoughts are so negative and down. Yeah. It's very hard to see the positive. But the help with the antidepressants, and slowly with Asiana helping me, and then and they also because we had to call the police several times, I reached out to victim support, and they gave me a plan of how to leave, and warned me of the dangers that the minute you do leave, that this is the time when it's the most scariest. However, at that time, leaving wasn't an option because I just didn't have the energy. I didn't have an ounce to give. I gave everything I could to try and be this perfect wife, to be a perfect mum. I just had no ounce of strength at all. I was broken. I was completely broken.
Well, I want to bring Ranjit Benji in on this now because obviously Ranjit Benji is a volunteer of the Sikh Helpline. In your opinion, and we deal with yourself. You deal with a lot of cases just like this. What could have been there to support people like Sharon had she reached out to the Sikh Helpline?
So it's a matter of like with the helpline, we're creating the awareness to help victims and individuals like yourself, because as you said, you didn't know when you was going through the experience what's happening to me. So it's a matter of like that support being there, and we would obviously work with third parties. We work with third parties to help you, like you mentioned, some agencies as well, to have a plan in place. And it's just it's the hardest bit, it's reaching out for that support, because you're in this vicious cycle. Like you were saying, you was feeling low, you was feeling down, you didn't have any strength to give to anybody else, and you didn't have strength yourself. So it's kind of like ourselves, where we step in, we'd kind of like volunteers would work with you. So you'll have like go through coping strategies, mechanisms, how to deal with it, highlight to you that, look, this is what's actually happening to you. And it's speaking to someone, that it's someone listening to you and then speaking to someone and expressing how you feel, and then working with expert agencies to kind of like move forward with what's the best way in your situation.
100%. You can't do this alone.
No.
You really need support and help from people showing you and guiding you the way, because you don't, like you say, you don't have the strength. And it's about taking small steps, measured steps, that to make sure you're safe as well. And you're also protecting your children. You could even be alone, but even then it's you're in a very vulnerable position. And as much as your family and friends mean well, unless they're really going through it themselves, they don't understand. And it was only when I reached professionals like yourself that they've seen the bigger picture, and they can actually tell you things will get better, but we have to take these steps. They also mentioned that how hard it's going to be, and it's going to take a lot of hard work, but they never gave up on me. So so I never gave up, and I never gave up for my children's sake.
That's really admirable, and that's what you need. You need to have that strength to pull you out of any situations that you're finding difficult and you're going through. But I want to go back to the GP, because a lot of people are afraid to speak to specialists and to speak to their GPs. So why do people have such fear to seek help? Why did it take yourself, or why do you think it takes other people who are going through what you're going through that much longer to seek help?
At the time, when you just cope, you get to a point, everyone has a breaking point. But I think, back when I was taking them back in, 2008-ish, there was still that stigma of taking antidepressants, and mental health wasn't spoken about like how freely it is today. And it was almost like a shameful thing, and I didn't want to admit that I was having mental health issues. I didn't want to. I felt more ashamed. I think when you're feeling really depressed, you already feel a lot of guilt and self-hate, and then you feel shame on top of that. It's just perpetuating this darkness that you feel. But I mean, I'm not saying that antidepressants work for everybody, but they changed my life in the fact that the darkness that was around me, it just turned a little bit grey. It doesn't make you happy, it doesn't make you high. It just takes the edge off of it slightly, so you can actually, it gives you mental clarity. You're not cured. It's not a cure. You still have to do the work yourself, but it just takes the edge off the darkness around you, and it gives you a little bit of hope.
So what's this stigma then that you went through with the Asian community? Because I can probably have a rough idea, and I'm sure Ranjit Benji will have a rough idea, because she deals with this on a daily, in terms of what was the stigma that you were going through? What was it that you were feeling that, this is shameful, this is wrong, we can't talk about it? What made you feel like that?
Because if I tried to speak to people, they try to shut it down.
Is this family?
Family, friends. This is marriage, this is life, just get on with it. So then it makes you feel weaker as a human being to say that, why, if these people are saying it's okay and it's okay to deal with it, why am I not being able to deal with it myself? And again, you feel like even more of a failure.
Yeah, and it is true. It's like within the Asian community, there's always the elders that you like to consult because you think they have wisdom. But they may have wisdom, but in stuff where it's, medicinal purposes and and your health and your
Yeah.
psychological, way of life. They haven't a clue, but everybody seems to be an expert in this.
Yeah.
So this is probably an issue for people in our community and obviously other communities as well who think they know it all and they like to brush things under the carpet. मेरा मतलब है नहीं कि किसी दी कोई ना कोई दुख च होवे किसी दा तुसी एमी कह देना बे आहो दिमाग हिल्लिया दा. No, it doesn't mean that. It means something's going on and you need to get the right help and the right people involved. The Sikh Helpline is the right people to get involved. Your specialists, such as your GPs and medical professions, those are the people you need to be speaking to, not somebody who's sitting there and because they're older, and yes, you give them the respect, but it doesn't mean they know what's best for you. They're just going to give a blanket answer, aren't they? Is that something that happened with yourself, do you think?
Yeah, because I didn't know anybody else that was going through what I was going through, so nobody can understand it. I mean, even my sister, she did say, look, I don't understand what depression is. She couldn't relate. And I think until somebody has been trained like yourself, or like a trained, psychologist, therapist, who understands the mindset on and it's all very textbook. It's everybody, when you have anxiety, everybody has the same kind of like reactions to anxiety. When you have depression, I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to brush my teeth. I didn't want to shower. I didn't change my clothes for days sometimes. It wasn't nice. But once you understand it a bit more, and once you speak to people who have also gone through it, they're going, that's absolutely normal. And even to this day, I still find it very hard to deal with paperwork because it's so overwhelming. So there are still elements in my life that I find overwhelming, but it's about learning how to manage it and get coping mechanisms. And as I was speaking to Ranjit, it does get better, easier, but it takes a long time. And even with taking an antidepressant, it's not a magic pill that all of a sudden you're going to be fine. And even people even said to me once I left my husband and I ended up in a women's refuge, that all of a sudden I'm going to be happy now. We're dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. When I saw him in court for the first time afterwards, my anxiety was so bad I actually thought I was going to die, and that they took me to the hospital.
Well, you see, I'm glad you've touched on that because it's going to lead up quite nicely to what I was going to ask you next. So at the point where you made the decision to get up and leave this toxic environment, you've mentioned things about narcissistic personalities. We'll touch on that as well. But I want to know about your journey from when you left. Where did you end up? Because you spoke about a refuge there.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to let the viewers know.
Well, the victim support people gave me kind of like a little pack. And there was an incident the night before where I thought that my life and my children's life were in danger. I called the police. They weren't that great, to be honest with you. It's like, it's just a domestic, but I was really scared for my life. And they were called out a couple of times that night, and I said I've had enough. And then there was a really nice police officer. She said, look, just contact this number and try and get some help. But then because I'd already received some support and they gave me the number for Women's Aid, I just kept that information aside, never thinking that I was brave enough or strong enough to do it. But the fact that I had this, as much as every day in my life I wanted to die, I didn't want to wake up the next day. There was something that kicked in and said, I want to live, I want to, I need to save my children. So
how old were your children at this point?
4 and 6 years
So
old.
as yourself going through mental well-being and health issues, you've got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Yeah. I had an operation on my foot at this time as well in August. So
Right.
this was in January. So I was still healing. So I was physically disabled as well.
And you had to get up and leave and go to a refuge.
No, what I did is I went to the council.
Yeah.
And I was homeless for 4 nights. And so I was because they can't home you in the same borough.
Yeah.
We just went to temporary. Like it was disgusting. And when we left, I had to tell the girls something. We're going on an adventure. Just try to still mask that. Oh, don't worry, Daddy's just angry. I would always try and keep the girls happy and say, look, Daddy's just a bit upset. Daddy's a bit angry. He's fine. He's not angry at you. So I'd always try and brush it off, and then I said, we're just going on an adventure, because even though they saw it, they felt it, I still wanted to be that. I didn't want to break down.
So you're being that strong figure for your
Trying
children.
to be, yeah.
So 4 days you were homeless, so you were in temporary accommodation. What was this? What was the
Every
condition?
day I had to move, even though I was physically disabled, and it was, and I had to go to the housing day after day. And on day 4 was when I was at breaking point, and I actually thought, I can't do this anymore. My children were crying, going, "Mummy, this isn't fun anymore. I want to go home."
Mm.
But I spoke to a solicitor. I had a meeting, and they said to get a non-molestation order, you have to give £1,000. Now he was controlling my finances. I had no money, so he took everything. So I was stuck, and then I was shaking, and I was like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" But luckily, that morning, I rang. Oh, I think earlier that day, I rang Women's Aid, and they gave me a lip balm, and it's got a barcode on it. And underneath that barcode, it's a very plain lip balm. So to the untrained eye, it's just a normal lip balm. But underneath is the phone number. So I phoned that number, and it saved my life, because they were frantically ringing around trying to find a refuge. I was at breaking point and shaking, thinking, right, that's it. I had it all planned. I had my whole how I'm going to kill myself and the kids. It's all planned. There was, it was there. And luckily, the solicitors was next to where my Asiana was, and I went in there shaking, and I'm like, I'm going to do something I'm going to really regret. And she calmed me down, and then got a phone call there and then, and said, "Look, we found your refuge. It's on the other side of London. You've got to get there before 5." And this is the lowest point in my life, when I had actually was going to go through killing myself and my kids. That was the thought process in my head at that time. And then all of a sudden, I got this phone call, and the lady said to me, "Go, go, go, just go." And so I don't know how. I don't know what happened. I think God just picked me up. I really feel that His presence was there and took me to the other side of London. This isn't a 5-minute drive. This was, a good hour and a half, maybe 2-hour drive at the time. I don't remember the journey. I don't remember everything. And then even going into the refuge, I was greeted by this lovely woman, and just being in a room that was clean and that had carpet, that my kids can go on the floor, because I couldn't do that in the temporary accommodation because it was so disgusting. I was placed with strange men. It wasn't safe for my children or me.
So, and I'm sorry to interrupt you on here. So where was your family?
I rang them. I said, "Can I stay with you?" And they said, no, they don't want drama at their doorstep. So my family let me down severely then. But in a way, it's worked out well. I think spiritually, I think God has a special journey for you.
Yeah.
And that, by going to a refuge, the judge said to me, things must have been really bad for you to have left your home to go to a refuge on the other side of London. And that saved me, because if I'd gone to my family, I would have been stuck there. And then I would have brought shame on the family, because I'm there and I'm not back at home. And to be honest with you, it would have been true. He did go to knock into their houses and say, "Where is she? Where is she?" So, Rab never jaya siga, like he did it for the right reason. At the time, I was really upset that how can my family do this? But it was the right thing.
So, and I'm very sorry you've had to go through that, and thank you for being so honest and open and sharing it with the viewers so they can get a quite an in-depth experience of what you've gone through. You touched something on here when we had a conversation prior to this interview about you didn't understand about toxic relationships and people having narcissistic personalities, which also destroys mind, body, and soul. Can you just speak about that, please?
It was only when I was having a full-on anxiety attack that the lady in the refuge took me to hospital, and it was a psychiatric nurse that assessed me, and then started talking to me about narcissistic personality disorder, and I didn't know anything about it. And then he explained projection, like how they project their insecurities onto you, what gaslighting is, all the classic terms. And I'm a bit of a reader. I like to read and educate and study. And then for me, and I was encouraged to read about it. And so I read books and books and books. And then when I realised that they're all the same, they all do the same things, like the love bombing at the start, being Mr. Perfect. To the outside world, they're so perfect, they're amazing, how lucky am I to be in that? And they've twisted people's minds so much that they think you're the one that's got the problem, not them. So even like, it's like they've put this magic cloak, like invisible cloak around themselves, that nobody can see the bad in them, everything is good. And then when I'm crying out saying, this person's bad, they're hurting me, they're this, they're that, nobody believes it. And I thought I was going mad. I thought, yeah, but he would do this all the time. And I actually, with the gaslighting, you do actually feel like you're going mad. And again, facing him in court for the first time for the non-molestation court order, it just broke me down. And it's only from there and that point, even when I was having the therapy or even the doc, nobody mentioned narcissistic personality disorder until I was actually taken to that hospital that day. And that opened my eyes. So this is why I want to teach and educate people. I taught my children about it. Anyone who I feel is in a toxic or narcissistic environment, they have similar traits. There's different levels of narcissism.
Yeah.
And you get it in your workplace, you get it in families, you even get it in friendships. And when you have been broken down to nothing, it's like you have no boundaries. People overstep those boundaries. They take advantage of your good nature and they just take.
So these people with these kind of, traits, these toxic narcissistic traits, would you say it's pushing their agenda on? It's always about themselves?
Yeah.
Anything that they don't like, they make a big scene about? Is it things like that?
Oh, completely.
So I'm not saying that these are the things that are, because we're not trained professionals to tell you what to look out for, but if you are in a relationship that you're seeing similar signs to this, where you're always being spoken down to, you're always being told off, it's always that one person's agenda. It doesn't have to be a male, it could be a female as well. Yeah. It's not just men. Let's get that straight away. So if you're seeing these things in your relationships or in a friendship or any kind of setting, reach out to the Sikh Helpline, reach out to a friend, reach out to family members if you can. We are here on a 24-hour basis. You can call us whenever you like. We are here to help people through your mental illness, through any kind of well-being, any domestic violence, such as Benji is saying right now. And it's scary to see that these traits have made you go on to antidepressants. It's made you feel depressed. It's actually taken you to a point where you've thought about taking your own life and your children.
This close to it.
So that's the rock bottom, as one would say. How did you come out of that? How was the journey up? Because
it's not easy. It took me several years. So the GP would say, right, we're going to put you into CBT. But at that time, where you're so broken, you have no energy to give, and they're giving you tasks and exercises, and I'm like, I can't do this. And your anxiety is so high, and you're living in fear still. You're still in that state of, don't get in this. Like, I thought everywhere I go is turning my shoulder, like, somebody's going to kill me. And it's a very scary feeling. And then when people try to calm you down, you just don't feel safe, you don't feel calm. The only place I did feel safe was when I was in that refuge. And they tried to give you different therapies, they tried to teach you mindfulness, they tried to teach you this. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But then I think you have to heal in your own time. But the thing is with the support like the Sikh Helpline, I had other groups and organisations that were supporting me on the daily. I could phone them up and say, look, I'm having trouble with this. And it's people who are trained or have knowledge that actually help me through and realise it is about small steps. You can't go in and go, right, just do the 6 courses of CBT and you'll be fine. And even over a year later, after I left, I was then put into a group situation, and it was things like when people say, "Oh, why isn't your house clean?" And, you know, because social workers were involved. You know, your house isn't this and blah blah blah. But I couldn't. It was at the point when I couldn't even get dressed. I didn't want to brush my teeth. I just felt so. I wasn't worthy of self-care, of love, of anything. And it was other people who can see that and say, no, we can do this. We can do this. And giving you that gentle, guiding support.
And I just want to bring Ranjit Benji into this. So, as from the Sikh Helpline point of view, with somebody who's suffered like Sharon Benji, what would the Sikh Helpline do in that journey to bring them back to some form of normality? What would they do?
So what we normally do is with Sikh Helpline, we work with victims and we work with third parties as well. So we could, in cases like this, set up a weekly call. So with the service users, set up a weekly call on mental emotional wellbeing. So see how you're getting on, where you're at, set some small kind of baby step goals. Like you mentioned, it was just taking those baby steps. And those are the biggest changes that really make you move forward. And then we would kind of like catch up with you, and that's all on how you feel and what you want to do. So you have the freedom if you want it like a weekly call or a fortnightly call or a monthly call. We'd kind of like our trained volunteers would work with you and kind of like go through a plan with you to bring you from where you've been to kind of like light at the end of the tunnel. So it's kind of like you know, getting you in a better place. And when you've been through stuff like this, you need that support, you need that help, you need that guidance, and it's just that little push about speaking to someone. So with our trained volunteers, it's about like they're all from different backgrounds, professional backgrounds as well, so it's kind of like you know, working with them and you know, looking at what the end goal is and getting there.
And what I would say is those organisations that help me, I mean, on the mental well-being task, it would be like, what would you like to do? You know, like they give me a little task, and I said, I'd like to take my girls swimming. And it's almost like you build up a really good relationship with that person. You go, I don't want to let that person down. And when you've achieved, even just, I want to take my kids swimming, it might not be anything big, but for me, it was a major achievement. And it made me happy, it made my girls happy, and I was so proud of myself to do that. And even though it was just a little thing, those little things, when you like look back and you think I'm not making much progress, but when you look back after about, you know, a few weeks, you're going, I couldn't even dream about taking my kids swimming a few weeks ago. So, and knowing that there is support throughout, you know, like for however long you need it, it's so nice. And it's like you're having a friend and who cares and supporting you. And also that they will also guide you. They might say, you know, I'm not legally trained, but I think you should speak to this person or this person. So they guide you in the right direction, because even to try and find a specialist, you know, domestic violence sort of solicitor who understands or is, you know, works on legal aid at the time, you know, I wouldn't know where to go. I mean, I'm a completely new area, for instance. So they would also guide me on all aspects. It's not just guiding me through my mental health. They're supporting me with getting therapy, you know, getting in touch with like the food banks and giving me vouchers. It was, there were so many different elements to that support. It wasn't just talking, it was so much more and completely valuable. And I couldn't have done it without that support. I couldn't have done it.
So going back to where you got the support and you've moved away from food banks and the refuge and the temporary accommodations, talk us through I mean, obviously you're dealing with it now. I'm going to ask you how that's affecting you towards the end, but tell us what you've done to get to where you are today. What are you doing with yourself now after, I mean, 10 years ago is a very long time.
Yeah.
You know, even 6 months to a year is a very long time. So it's been 10 years. Yeah. So let the viewers know as to where you are today and how you've come about that.
I think for me, I had to break things down. And it was like step number one, getting my mental health back on track. Because if you are suffering with mental health, I mean, I had depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. So you've got all of that going on.
Yeah.
And until you learn to deal with, I mean, you're never like fully cured. You'll still have elements and triggers for years after, but they do get better over time. but
they become manageable.
They become manageable, and the more you kind of go through, like even your anxiety kind of level goes down. You think, actually, I've dealt with this, and this,
Yeah.
and when anything else comes on board, you're thinking, and your anxiety goes up. You're like, actually, I've just come from this situation and I survived.
Yeah.
And then you think, this is all right. If I could survive that, I can survive this. And it's just little things.
So being
like that.
positive then.
Trying to be positive is, like I said, it's not easy.
No, of course.
It's very hard, and you do have setbacks. And but that's when you phone up the support, and they won't say, "Oh, don't worry about it," or "You get better," or I mean, all you want to do when you're depressed is sleep, and it's so hard to motivate yourself, like I said. But the support understands that. They're not forcing you to go out and say, go out and exercise. You know, when all these people say, just do this, just do this, and your life will be fine. It's even with like thinking of 3 things to be grateful for. I struggled with that. So she's like, think of one thing to be grateful for.
Yeah.
For my children. And then I think of this. And then eventually that list grows longer and longer. And that switches your way of life. And then, I think I'm safe. The weather's nice. Or, the kids, got a certificate from school. It's those little things. And then when you share it with your support worker, it makes you feel proud. They make me feel proud. And then you realise that this is really for them. And then in turn, by being well in myself, it makes them happier. The kids rub off on you. So if you're down, they kind of become down. If you're positive and wanting to go out, they want to go to the park, they want to do this. And they feed off of you, you feed off of them. And it's just being around positive people, people that want to help you and support you.
And staying away from the toxicity.
Keep away from toxic people, because they'll make you feel like you're being selfish. They make you feel like, oh, you're taking the children away from their dad. They make you feel like a bad person for doing all this thing because you wasn't happy. And but my life is I'm at so much peace and so content, and because it's actually made me more spiritual, going from a place where when it was really dark, I'm like, is there a God? Where is he? And when they were there, you feel it, you feel strong. When you do your part and stuff, you feel like, I'm getting goosebumps. It's like, it feels like they're there. It just takes you back. And that's made me so much spiritual. I actually think I'm a better person now than I was then. And I think I had this journey to make me that person. My children are now educated about psychology of people, about setting boundaries, not having to accept certain people. Not everybody's going to like you.
Yeah.
You don't have to be everybody's friend. You just be true to yourself. Don't follow people, and always be grateful and humble. When good things happen, thank you, Baba Ji, and always live in a spiritual, good, be in alignment, mind, body, and soul. And I think that set them up with good foundations, rather than being in a environment where it's like, don't worry, go in a cushion, go in tiga. I
think that's the problem, isn't it? I think there's too many people where in Asian communities, especially the ones that are from back home, and it's not just the people from back home, because it's the ones that are probably born here as well, who have been taught that, but the mentality is going out, it's okay, is wrong. Because if somebody, and I'm going to be quite frank here, if somebody came up and slapped you in the face, are you going to say goini tika hunda? No, you wouldn't. There's a couple of things you do. A, you'd retaliate, or B, you'd go and speak to the police or whatever, right? But because it's not happening to them and it's happening to somebody else, it's jalho goina. It's okay. And this is what messes everything up with issues around, the community and wider as well, is the people who have no foresight. I wouldn't say sense, because they have sense, because if they didn't, they wouldn't be where they are today. But they don't have the foresight or lack of education to know that this isn't right.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, I did feel some sort of hate towards people that have wronged me.
Yeah.
But now I feel I forgive because they didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And even now, I'm still learning about supporting people and like my children with any mental health issues and what not to say and
Yeah.
what to say. And just because something's worked for me, it's not going to work for everybody. But the one thing I can honestly say is
Yeah.
you cannot do it alone.
Absolutely.
And to go to the experts, make those calls. And even if you just want to talk about it and not take action, just pick up that phone. That's all I'm saying, because that phone call can change your life.
Absolutely. Well, Sharon, Benji, thank you very much for coming today. Ranjit, Benji, thank you for joining us on the
Thank
show.
you.
There you go, guys. A person who's been through it, the experience shared. If you have any issues, any similarities, anything the slightest that's going on in your lives right now, pick up the phone, speak to the Sikh Helpline team. They will help you, they will point you in the right direction, and you won't need to suffer alone. Just before we go, Benji, any last words?
Just say peace of mind and being happy in your heart is priceless, absolutely priceless. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to live this life in fear, in this dark hole. You are lovable. You are God's child, and you deserve that happiness and joy in your life. And don't let people put you down. Just do it if not for yourself, do it for your children or your loved ones, but please seek help.
Benji, anything from yourself?
Thank you very much for sharing your story, Sharon. And as we spoke about it, get in touch with Sikh Helpline, open 7 days a week, 24-hour basis, and we're here to help and guide you and work with you. So please get in touch. Don't struggle alone.
Absolutely. So you'll see at the bottom the website, you'll see the contact number from myself, Satnam Singh, and the Sikh Helpline team. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.